Okay, now I'm going to get into the question of using the GView 2 to program the Total G. I've got the model turned on, transmitter on, and I've got the GView 2 plugged in to the flight control side. Just the basic menus, you just push enter to get into the flight control menus. Wait a second, it'll show you general settings. Just enter your main menu, and then if you're setting this model up, all you would do is scroll through each of the parameters, like what CCP mode are you, US Spectrum or external receiver, what type of transmitter, JR, FATABA, whether you've got the magnet in there. You would then turn the head or whatever you have to sense the magnet. I've got it in the tailrotor gear. You just turn it until it's on the sensor and see if it makes sure it reads that it sends a magnet. Next, orientation, whether it's front, back, or side to side. This is horizontal front, back. And then what type of throttle lock you're using, or trim lock activation you're using. I'm using throttle above 30%. You can change that to something else, whether using the governor or the RPM off. I just use throttle. You can use the RPM with the sensor to determine at what RPM you want it to come on, and I just use it off. I use throttle instead. That's by far the easiest. It works on nitro and electric. Pirouette comp type, I have it at auto. You could have it either auto or off. Boot mode, enable boot mode. That's actually when you're going to do the boot loading, but we recommend not doing it through here because you got to have the computer plugged in anyway, so you don't really need to access that here with the GView 2. Reset parameters, you can, if you want to reset parameters, you just turn this to on and say yes, answer the question, and then you can power cycle the unit and reset all the parameters to their defaults. This just tells you the misses you're getting from the satellites. Actually, I actually got 7 misses just sitting here tweaking with it on the table here. That's okay indoors, and as you're moving the model around, normally you'll actually be all zeros, but in this case I actually got a few misses messing with it here on the table. And then that's it on the initial menu. After general settings, you can go scroll to the aux channel assignments. As again, that's just where you select what channel controls what function, and these have the same, the main ones, aux3 on flight control, gyro have aux2, and this is also telling what your channel output is and input pulse width numbers. This is usually between 900 and 2100 on all these channels. So the one place, don't confuse here where you're talking about RPM and gear, that is not your RPM it's showing there. That's actually the channel input pulse width, so which will be between 900 and 2100. So this is not actually showing your RPM, it's showing your gear channel input pulse width. And these are just your other channels that can be set and used for the Total G, and that's it on the channel assignments. Input pulse width, this is just reading your actual input pulse widths on the channels. See, gear is 1411 like it was in the other one. So you would set your collected to 1500 during setup mode, and that's really it. You just set all the channels. You can set max gain in here as well and see what your actual gain is. I've actually got the gain turned off right now. That's on input pulse width. Servo setup, that's just setting your servo directions when you're making sure your swash plate's traveling in the correct direction on the aileron, the elevator, collective. Then it's got to set your neutrals for each of those servos as well. And then your total travel. This one's actually off just a little bit. It's 98. Now this travels actually do not show up in the interface anymore. Computer interface, because you really find you don't need these travels at all. You shouldn't have to set them. This just tweaked a little bit, but that doesn't really even matter. But you can always come into the GView 2 and adjust these if you decide you need to. This is also your this is called travel input multiplier in the GView 2, but this is actually, or aileron input multiplier, this is actually your travels when you're on the advanced menu in the interface. It's the same thing. Okay, that's your servo setup, CCPM. Then you go to control and gyro setup. That's just, this is where you set your limits, like your limits set in the interface. Left limit, back flip, forward flip. So you would want to, if you're setting up the GView, you'd want to be in this menu with these active if you're going to check your limits for your throws, your 11 degrees. You want to be in this menu on this page if you're using the GView to set it. And all you do is push the plus to set it on each individual one. And this is just where you check your negative and positive collective, make sure it's the correct direction. If you go positive collective and it says negative, just push plus and it'll reverse. Your gyro direction, confirm your gyros are correct direction. Flip gyro direction, same thing. Auto trim. The auto trim is actually not active at this point in this program, so we just keep it off all the time. And that's it on the control and gyro setup. You scroll next to flight tuning. hit enter, and this is just your stops. We call it bounce back coast, which is actually what it physically does. It either bounces back or it coasts when you do the stop, but this is the right stop. And if it bounces back, this number needs to go down. If it coasts, in other words, goes too far, this number needs to go down. So if it bounces back, it needs to go up. If it coasts, it needs to go down. In the left, same thing. Up, same thing. Down, same thing. This is actually the elevator to aileron mix. You can adjust if you're trying to get it to, like if your phasing was off on your swash plate, or your total G isn't actually sitting straight, you can use this to mix some of that out so the model will roll or flip straighter. Usually it's 0, unless something is mechanically off. And that's it in the flight tuning menu, and that's it for the main menu. Now there is a background menu, and I hit enter to get to exit, so I'm now exited the main menu. Or when you also turn it on, it will show you basically this menu. So to get the background menus, you push plus instead of hitting enter. We're now in the background menus. There's a lot more in here, so I won't go through each individual one, but you can just scroll through them. It's your servo neutrals, which are basically the same thing as we have in the other page. All the main page is the highlights of the background page, basically. All your travels can be set in here. Your CCP and parameters, these again just your servo directions, your multipliers. Now the main ones will start, like this is where it starts to get with a large long menu. There's a lot of items in here as you're scrolling through, so you usually wouldn't want to access a lot by going through this menu because it gets very long. And that's why you normally use the main menu. There's a few items in here that we may have you adjust, like the roll gyro gains. This is where you can go in, you can change your roll speed like on the interface menu. You can change your roll rate gain like on the advanced interface menus, and your roll heading gain like on the advanced interface menus. You can also go to your flip gyro gain, same thing. You can control your flip speed, which is the speed right around the middle. You control your flip rate gain, and you can control your flip heading gain. All those are in the advanced menus. There's other items in here which you don't really need to worry about. And these are background items that we didn't put in the main menus because you don't usually need them. Now, one thing that we may if someone calls customer support and we're trying working on their auto pirouettes, and we may have them actually go in and calibrate the tail rotor gyro. The way you do that is if you're at your main menu, you push plus to get to the advanced menus. You scroll till you get to flight control, hit enter, and then you're going to push. It's about 35 times to get far down the menu to get to the tail rotor setup, where you actually calibrate the tail gyro. Let me get there. Oh, there it is. Pirouette angle minus display or plus to set. Okay, now what this is your pirouette angle. This is where you can both check by doing display or set the calibration of the tail rotor gyro. In most cases, the tail rotor gyro should be okay, but to check it, you push. Well, first you're going to have something to push your model up against to make sure your model is square. You can turn it and get it squared out to the same spot again. I just have a square block up against the table that I can push the skid on. But to display it, I push display, which is the minus sign. You push it until a couple of times till it says 0. Then you lift the model up and rotate it 360 degrees. Push it up back against the same block so you know it's square again, and push the angle. See, this said 346 degrees is what it thought that turn was, even though I went 360. So that's off by a little bit. I could calibrate and probably make it a little bit better, but that's pretty good. If I push minus again till it's 0, I can lift off and turn it the other way, and then check. Come back in, and then I push the minus, and that said 361. So my left pirouette is quite accurate on the 360 degrees. Now if I want to set it, like if either one of those numbers were too low, and they're both pretty good, if either one had been 280 or 290 or whatever, that's way too low, you would go push the plus button, and then it actually says now it wants to pirouette the heli 360 degrees. So I'm going to lift the heli up, turn it 360 degrees, set it back down, and push plus. And the number is going to be somewhere around 100 and 110 to tell you it's been set. So I did it right pirouette. Now I'm going to push plus again, and then I'm going to go a left pirouette And it knows which is right and left, so you don't have to tell it. And then push plus again. Now it says 110. Now, to check it, I'll push the minus again, and then, so it says 0. And then I'll turn it right and see what it says. Minus, see 368, that's close enough. Then push minus again, and then I'll try it the other direction. And then push minus, see 358. So that's close enough. You know, it's 15 units, 20 units away from 360. That's good enough. You just want to make sure you're close. It's not some really low number. And that's how you calibrate. You're using the pirouette angle for the tail gyro. Hope you enjoyed this edition of Radix Facts. We went over the basic setup for the Total G, answered some questions. Next week on Radix Facts, we're going to actually go into some of the flight tuning, show you the flying and what some of the tuning and adjustment in the Total G does in the air. See you then.